All right, hello everyone. We are going to go ahead and kick things off. Welcome to our June Transportation Lane Forum. Just a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, make a comment, please unmute yourself and then mute yourself during the presentation so we don't have any interruptions. There's the unmute. If you have any technology challenges, you can go ahead and shoot a message in our chat or shoot an email to Tess Ellender. She is managing tech for us today. And then here's our agenda. We're starting with our quick introductions. We have a great presentation from David Essie at the Wisconsin DOT. And then we always have different interns managing these webinars for everyone. And we're going to give you a little bit of an idea of everything else we take care of here at CDOT. And then this is the 7th anniversary of the Transportation Lane Forum. So we'll have Gary, one of our founders, kicking that off a little bit later. And then we'll open the forum for any questions, any comments anyone has. And then we'll finish things up. Reminder, we have an awesome following of TLF members around the world who all join in on these webinars at different points. Another reminder, unmute yourself if you have those questions at the end. And we are going to go ahead and hand things over to David if you want to go ahead and take control now.
Great, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good to go.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to call in today and sort of tell a story of what we have going on at Wisconsin DOT. Like a lot of other DOTs, we're faced with a lot of challenges, both budgetary and just number of projects and staffing and things. And so innovation or just process improvement in general is so important. So good morning, everybody. My name is David Essie. I'm the DTSD Innovation Technology and Program Chief. DTSD is essentially the engineering side of the house at Wisconsin DOT. See if I can get this to go to the next slide here. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our innovation program and our culture of innovation here at Wisconsin DOT. I'm going to get into our innovation process with some examples and then just a few closing comments about what the future looks like. Maybe not just for DOTs, but for everybody. One of the things I like to do right out of the gate is kind of say, hey, what is the definition of innovation? You know, and really in a lot of ways you could take this and plug in lean is change that unlocks value. Process improvement is change that unlocks value. So innovation is not necessarily the key word there. I think the things are change and value. And this is an important conversation to have with your staff as you're trying to get them to look forward to different ways at what they do. What can we change to make their world better? What can we change to bring value to the organization? When I first started at the DOT, my position was brand new. They really leadership decided to put a resource behind this idea of innovation and developing an innovation program. So I had an unscripted opportunity, I guess you could say, and there wasn't a lot of other references around at other DOTs that had formal innovation titles. I know Jason Swola from Kentucky Transportation Cabinet was one of the few that I knew of that had this idea or this title of innovation. So right out of the gate, we had a leadership that supported this idea of innovation, and I was always told, hey, as long as you're taking the calculations, we'll be able to take some risk. And I always thought that was interesting. You don't hear that a lot, at least on early innovation programs. They devoted a resource, right? So they put me in a position and they gave me a small budget as an opportunity to look at some ways to improve. We always had pretty clear business initiatives, things like e-construction, asset management, focusing on developing a culture of strong employees. So I knew the direction I was supposed to pull the rope. Now, the things that were missing when I first started were the process. And this process has to be nimble. Otherwise, everything just takes so long. And as a state agency, we take really long amounts of time to do anything, right? But if you have a process that's nimble, you can actually make some really good progress. We definitely did not have an environment where employees believed that change could happen. And in fact, when I first started in 2014, a lot of people kind of felt like I was just a flavor of the month. Right, and that was sort of scary to me because I didn't know how I was going to overcome that. But that's culture. That's what you want to change. And through working with those employees, you develop that community, that culture that prioritizes process improvement, prioritizes innovation, and through that you also develop your champions, which are really, really, really important. This is what we looked like in 2014, 2015. We had our Wisconsin Highway Research Program. We had our national opportunities, the peer-to-peer exchanges, ASHTO, involvement in TRB, everyday counts. We've done a lot of things through everyday counts. In fact, we've done probably 80% of the offerings in everyday counts in some shape or form. And then I was tasked with developing this innovation program aspect. So we had these ideas, these light bulbs around the state, and we have 5 different regions that I was trying to coordinate with and on top of central office. So I took a little bit of a different approach with innovation. A lot of other states have blended their STIC, their State Transportation Innovation Council, into a lot of different ways. And for me, the STIC formally was our external partnerships. That means Wisconsin Transportation Builders Association, DNR, LTAP, our tribal liaisons and things. It was an external partnerships that I really wanted to make sure we were communicating well with them, giving them opportunities to bring ideas to the table. But what I was always afraid of is that we didn't have good bedrock for those ideas to come into our organization, right? We didn't have that culture. So I developed what I call the Innovation Review Committee. And this was a statewide program that had representatives from each region, all of our different functional areas like planning, operations, construction, etc. And that was really a good opportunity for us to get things rolling, because now I had members out in the region offices and in the bureaus to speak with. But at the end of the day, it was still a central office initiative. And I stepped back a little bit and I pulled out this old diagram, right? And you can change the percentages, you can change some of these things, but we've all seen these bell curves before. And I really spent some time to figure out who is doing innovation versus who is really leading implementation. And you can see this overlap of these early adopters. And I sat back and said, okay, well, that's probably important, right? You have people that are on both sides of that are leading innovation and implementation. Who are they? And for us here at DOT, it's primarily the people in the regions. The bureaus, our central office bureaus, are there to support, but really it's the practitioners, the end users, if you will, in the region offices. So that's when I took it a step forward and created this idea of local innovation teams within our region offices and gave them this power to just do things. I don't need you to drag everything through my process. I don't need to be the bottleneck. I need you just to think about things and just do stuff. And along the way, let's work together to document it. Let's work together to calculate benefit cost relationships and things like that. So that really ripped the lid off of things, and we had ideas coming in right and left. And throughout time, we've really had some good ones come through, and I'll get into a little bit more detail as to some of the things we've worked on. Some of the lessons learned throughout this development process were a few things. One is being careful where and when you document. Documentation is important, but boy, you can spend a lot of time doing it. And what I tried to do is develop an innovation process that wasn't reliant on documentation. It was reliant on relationships and networking and conversations first. And then we choose when and where to document those things. The program started out very heavy in documentation, and I can tell you, none of those documents have any value anymore today. And so things move very quickly. And like I said, you could spend a lot of time burning time on the documentation side. Be sure to communicate incremental progress. People need to see the visibility. They need to see the steps you're taking. They need to hear about the things that are actually starting to work, the things that are bringing value to our organization. So figuring out mechanisms to communicate the steps you've taken and the benefits you've gained is really, really an important piece. I always really focus on treating small ideas with respect. And if whatever room you're sitting in, I doubt there's one giant light bulb in the middle of it lighting it up. It takes lots of smaller light bulbs to light up a room, or even more to light up a whole organization. So treat those small ideas with respect, because you're going to get into a situation where it can really be a snowball effect. Once you can prove to somebody that you can handle the small stuff, then they'll start bringing you the bigger stuff. Engage and support your practitioners day in and day out. These are the people that are in the trenches, that are doing a lot of the work, the heavy lifting, if you will, and really engaging them and supporting them and listening to them is so important for innovation. Figuring out how you get there is a different story that takes maybe coordination from management or from the budget offices and things, but those practitioners are the ones that really have these huge opportunities to improve the way we deliver our programs. If at all possible, keep your process simple and nimble, and I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. And I finally am getting to a point where I've really managed to have people believe and feel that central office is about coordination, not about ownership. I want my local innovation teams to own things, to manage those pilot projects, but I'm always, always, always here as a resource for them whenever they need me. couple of other outcomes that have been really interesting to me is employee development. I've seen staff at all levels of the organization take leadership and mentorship roles. I've seen employees grow. I've seen people join these innovation teams straight out of college, or the people that have been here for 30 years. There's still growth opportunities there. And we always have an opportunity then to expose them to new areas of our business, especially the budding engineers that have never really seen what happens in operations yet. They're still working in design. So, this is a really good opportunity for employee development. We have opportunities then also to let them present their ideas to management. And that's a really good opportunity for, early engineers or even mid-level engineers to sit in front of our executives and show them what they got. This is always that focus on continuous improvement. And again, it goes back to that definition of innovation. This is what it's really about. It's moving that ball forward. Then I also find it, from my perspective, in my role, it's an opportunity for me to explain and define business initiatives. Like, what is e-construction? What is BIM? What do we mean by asset management? And taking it kind of a step further, I'd like to talk a little bit about this. When we look at e-construction, this is something that I'll pull up in front of people and say, okay, e-construction is about going paperless, but do we know what that means? Can we actually sit down and have this conversation? And in some cases, we've done things with paperless operations, so we're taking an image of a document perhaps. Some cases we've moved things into an electronic format where there's more intelligence, maybe collaborative sharing and some of those things. Then there's a whole digital end of the spectrum, like some of our contract management systems that are all web-based and everything's working out of databases. And when we talk about improving a process, this is one of the important things for us to bring up, because going from paper to electronic versus paper to digital is a very different investment. And it's a very different change management philosophy perhaps behind that. So this is just an example of the things that I'm able to walk through with people, just so they can kind of see and get a little flavor as to, hey, what are these business initiatives and why does it matter for me as an end user? So next, I'm going to go into our innovation process and some examples of things we've been working on. When I first started tracking innovations, it was the old, hey, what percent is that? Or is that red, green, yellow? And that status is somewhat important, I guess. But at the end of the day, when somebody came to me and had 60% behind an idea, I frankly didn't know what that meant. So I broke this into 5 phases, basically. Incubate, demonstrate, pilot, communicate, implement. It doesn't make a nice, neat acronym, unfortunately, because I know DOTs, we love our acronyms, but it is what it is. So incubate is exactly what it sounds like. Let's talk about it. There's no risk really involved with this. There's no money really being spent other than maybe some staff time here. So let's just talk. Let's think about ideas. Let's throw it all on the table. Nothing's really too crazy, right, at this point. If we find something during that discussion that we really think, wow, that has some potential, let's think about it financially. Is it a $10 million cost when we only have a $500,000 budget? Maybe that's one of the things that makes this a no-go decision. However, we actually had a chance then to think about it and talk about it. And that's culturally a good thing, giving people access to the conversation. If you make that go decision after incubation, you want to get into demonstration phase, trying to collect some existing research, calling peer states, calling peer agencies within your state. I call DNR and ask them, hey, how are you handling this GIS thing? Get demonstrations from your vendors. And again, it's pretty low risk at this point, right? We really haven't made investments. We've made some calls. We've gathered some information. I might ask my research library to do a literature search and get a synthesis report for me, do a rack survey. There's a lot of opportunities there to gather information. If we still like the way things are smelling, let's take a taste. Let's go into pilot. And let's actually throw this opportunity in front of practitioners so they can validate the benefits and the ROI and the actual anticipated functionality of this idea or this improvement. And then if the pilot is starting to go pretty well, I like to have the conversation of, hey, what do you think about implementation? Is this a statewide best practice? Should we be having that conversation as well? Because once we wrap up the pilot phase, we're going to communicate out those results with a broad base of stakeholders. And this could be things like when we had our operations folks come in and say, hey, we want to start running GoPro cameras in our trucks, during incidents and things so we can record what's going on. Well, then our oversized, overweight truck routing unit said, hey, we like that idea too. And they're in different sections. And then project delivery said, hey, can we use those GoPros to document our work zone layouts and just do drive-throughs so we can just document that? So the point is, you go into an initial idea thinking it's going to apply to group X, but Y and Z also might get benefit from it too. So it's important to communicate out to a broader audience than you may initially think. And then finally, we get into implementation. And this is all about planning, budgeting, resourcing, identifying the timing, and coming up with who are those champions that are going to lead the implementation. And that's always a risk area for me because I can't lead everything. I cannot implement everything. I need really strong champions to help me along the way. And it's a good opportunity for them to grow in the organization as well. So a couple of examples, right? The question that I often get is, hey, is the 5 steps working, right? Is your program working? And I don't want to try to encapsulate everything that we're doing because we're doing some really great large scale things, e-ticketing and stringless paving and all these other big broader initiatives for e-construction, and our asset management stuff's really coming along. But I wanted to drill into like some of those smaller things that we talk about, some of the incubation things, so you get a flavor for what types of things we're talking about. And these are all broken down by some of our region offices here. I'm not going to read through all these, but I'm going to select just a couple of them along the way. One of them was our North Central region did mobile culvert inspections. And I'm going to talk about this one a little bit more deeper in a few minutes. Then they also said, hey, Trimble makes this really cool LiDAR tool. We should maybe take a look at that. So that's one thing they're going to be getting a demonstration of. Northeast region was a lead of implementing Bluebeam. And that's another one that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. They were the initial pilot team on a project that gathered those benefits, communicated them out, and now we're focused on implementation at a broader level. They also get into some really cool, more cultural things like a region listserv that people can subscribe to for getting their innovation newsletter. And you'll notice that I didn't say the division's innovation newsletter, I said the region's letter, because they own that. That's how they communicate. That's how their culture is used to receiving information. So I really try to let them have that opportunity to lead it on their own. A couple other examples from other regions. Northwest region has been using this InfraWorks tool. If anyone's ever seen that, it's a very cool visualization tool. It's really excellent for public information settings to show design intent and things, and they're leading our statewide implementation there. They've also done some technical demonstrations of using KMZ files and Google Earth as a pilot project, and now they're communicating out those results to a broader audience. It's just an example of how they're using different tools and how we're trying to support that corporately. I'm going to get into the box file sharing pilot also. Southeast region is one of our more dense regions. We have a lot of big projects there. They've done some amazing things with our Zoo Interchange project, a $1 billion project basically. And they've been looking at some virtual machines and some cloud computing opportunities because we're really trying to crunch some serious data that maybe a standard PC can't handle. And then looking at their GIS system, this is one that's going to be presented to our executives very soon. They came up with an awesome way of bringing in corporate data into a GIS platform for planning, operations, project delivery, etc. And then finally is our Southwest region. They always have some good ideas. They were implementing Bluebeam for plats. They came up with this really great idea of 43-inch 4K monitors, which I'll talk about a little bit more soon. They got into bathymetric surveys. So this is something that goes underwater and can scan, scour, and wash out after an incident, as an example, and give you a 3D model representation of what that washout looks like. It's very cool technology. So now I'm going to take a little bit deeper dive into a couple of those things like I mentioned. The 43-inch 4K monitors. Now, this isn't one of those $1 million cost savings ideas, right? But this is an example of our users were really tired of working in between the break between two 24-inch screens. The higher resolution, right? That's the more workspace aspect of this. How many pixels? So we had users go from 1 screen to 2 screens. Now we have 3 screens, and a couple of users have 4 screens. Well, this 43-inch 4K monitor is about equivalent to 3.5 monitors in one spot. And you really have to make sure you have the right workstations, the depth of the workstation so you're not sitting right on top of it. But a lot of our CAD stations are pretty deep, and it's been working out pretty well from an ergonomic standpoint. We found some time savings in that people were spending about 15 minutes a day moving stuff around between the different screens. They were printing things out because the resolution was so low. So now we have this high resolution, the line works coming through. What's on this gentleman's screen right here is actually InfraWorks, and that's in 4K resolution, so it's really, really crisp. And at the end of the day, we brought something into the organization that created a high level of end user satisfaction. This is one of those snowball events, right, where people are saying, whoa, what do you mean? We can actually bring this kind of technology in, and it came through the innovation program? Hold on a second, I got some ideas too. Another example is Bluebeam. For those of you that don't know this, this is a pretty powerful PDF review tool. We struggle doing collaborative review within Adobe. We wanted some more of the engineering tools, some of the CAD plugins, 3D PDFs, some of the measuring tools and things. Follow along the lines of our push for paperless. You know, our designers were tired of getting PDFs that are printed and marked up with handwritten comments and then scanned and sent back to them. And at the end of the day, all those comments were really difficult to track and resolve. So now we have Bluebeam Review plus their studio function that has saved us some materials, definitely saved us some time, and has really increased our collaboration. And the reason being is Bluebeam offers a couple of things. On the left side, there's this thing called tool chest. So when PDS comes in there, or when maintenance engineers or when environmental comes in, they select their tool chest. And when they start putting comments onto the PDF, it color codes it. So now right away, visually, I can see, oh, that's a green comment, that was environmental. On the right side, I can see who's been in the session and what they've done. Did they add a comment? Did they delete something, etc.? I can see anytime who's actually in the session live with me at the same time. And everything is real time here. There's about a 3-second delay from when I add a comment to when it's posted onto the actual PDF in the cloud. But most importantly for me is this bottom piece, this database. Now everything that's being entered in can go into that database, and I can look at a comment and reply to it. So when environmental says, hey, this spot is a great location for XYZ, I can reply and say, hey, I agree to that, or no, I disagree with that. And it creates a database that can be exported and actually used as a tool. You can set status, resolve, and everything. So it's got some really great functionality to it. Another example is Box.com. And I brought up this Federal Highways tech brief from their e-construction piece that talked about project collaboration. It talks about the technologies needed, which are collaboration tools, document management tools, and also the storage solutions, which are cloud-based. And this was one of our big problems here at WisDOT, was file sharing and collaboration. We spent a lot of money and time, having LAN drives and file servers out in job shacks, and then we have to pay for the storage separately, and we have to pay for access separately, and it just wasn't really working well. And at the end of the day, you kind of still have this dumb LAN drive. It's not very searchable. You can't put metadata behind things. It's very difficult to do that. So there's a lot of opportunities when you go to cloud-based solutions. And so we still had that push for paperless. We had tried using LAN drive, SharePoint, FTP, but we had a lot of issues with all of those. And one big thing that keeps cropping up is photo management. And so we looked at a number of different tools. We worked with our IT partners. And at the end of the day, we came up with this idea of, hey, let's check out Box.com. And you can replace the brand name here. You could use Dropbox. You could use, I think Simplicity was one that was used before. But Box for us was very achievable purchasing-wise because it was already in the state system. It met all of our base requirements. And it's been a very good tool for us so far. One of the nice things is that it handles these large files with ease. You can do a single file upload of 15 gig. And I don't know if anybody's ever tried to put a 15 gig file into SharePoint, but our environment cannot handle it. And we have some very large model files, right? Our civil 3D files are very big. So, and on top of it, at the end of the day, you can audit your files and make sure you're hitting your records retention policies for compliance. So here's kind of a look at what this is. Here's the interface. It's been very easy for us to use. I was able to upload, almost a gigabyte video in about 40 seconds, able to share that quickly. I can do version controls. It handled all of these requirements that we had. And it has a really good mobile interface. So anybody that's ever used an iPad in the field, and we're not allowed to use iTunes, so we have to use something called File Browser. And getting to your files on your LAN drive from an iPad in the field is brutal. Box has taken all that away. Now our users have instant access through a native app on an iPad right to their files. So again, this is a huge opportunity for the end users to improve the way they do their business. Another example that I wanted to talk about was field technologies, and this is kind of a cool one because it continues to evolve. Like other agencies, you've probably been implementing field technologies like Android tablets, iPads, and such. We got rid of that paper-driven process in the field. We've gotten rid of that manual data collection where you write it down in your notebook and type it in later. We don't have to carry the paper manuals anymore. We used to have limited access to email. That's gone away. And some of our solutions are the smartphones and smart devices like iPads, iPhones. We use data collectors like the Trimble Geo 7X to go out in the field. We have a number about 35 of those deployed around our state for PDS to do quantities and do slope elevations, make sure alignments are on point without having to put in a survey ticket. So that's really nice for them. And then all the evolution of all the mobile apps, right? And we're using things like OnStation and weather apps and mobile inspector. That turned into, hey, what else can we do with it besides project delivery? And so that's where we went into culvert inspections. And we started looking at, oh, okay, what else can we do with the culvert inspections? Well, what if we use a remote control car? And some of you may know from Minnesota DOT, or I think Vermont's been using them as well. We kind of stole that idea from them. We had a good group that submitted this idea from our Northeast region, and we bought a truck and we outfitted it with a GoPro camera and some lights and things. And this is kind of what it looks like as they're driving through a culvert. And right away, you're starting to see on that left side there, that doesn't look real good. These are the types of things that are really hard to pick up from visual inspection, just laying on the ground with a flashlight, right? So now we're able to actually put these things there and get a higher quality inspection. Here's another shot from inside the tube. So the point is that we've taken something that was a mobile device used in project delivery. We've also leveraged that kind of technology onto our operations and maintenance side of the house. And now they're seeing opportunities where they can get live video feeds from this RC truck as it drives through back to their iPad. And it just keeps evolving. And now I already have 3 other people saying, hey, I have some ideas with this too. So it's really exciting to see how people are really pushing it forward. So the last part about my presentation here is kind of what's next, right? And I don't know about other DOTs, but I'm really intrigued by artificial intelligence, machine learning, this idea of blockchain. And for me, I think it's opening new doors for our industry. You know, we're already actually looking at how machine learning can help us with sharpening our algorithms for some of our pavement management strategies. I think it's going to bring about data and storage needs like we've never seen before. You know, data integration, data cleansing, all those types of things that we need to be worrying about. And then what kind of new data do we need as well? I think that's going to be another piece of it, especially with the connected autonomous world. And along that brings in this whole new realm of knowledge and experience and the way that we think about things. This is going to be really important for us because it's going to offer a lot of opportunities. And I don't know, me personally, I'm not well versed in this, and I need to plug into the right people who are so that I can learn and that our organization can move forward with this. Data-driven asset management is a big one. You know, all DOTs are basically going down this path. But what are the handoffs? Do we really understand what broad-based integrated data lifecycle looks like? It's not just asset management. It's not just BIM. It's everything in between. It's the people, the budgets, the assets themselves, their location. And in talking with our operations maintenance teams, they're not real sure what they want because they've never been offered it before. So we're looking at what are the necessary handoffs from project delivery. And does this include stronger as-built information? For example, will we start LiDARing our complex projects and hand off point clouds to operations and maintenance? Do they need new skill sets? Like, do they need to know how to operate Civil 3D? Because that's our core design software. And right now, very few, if any, of our operations and maintenance people use that tool. We're going to continue to pilot and implement field technologies. You know, the next one I'm going to bring up is UAS. But there's a lot of other handheld things. Some of these LiDARs are getting very small and very applicable to our business. What about crowdsourcing? What can we do for data collection from a crowdsourcing standpoint? I think there's some really good opportunities there that I know Wisconsin has not leveraged yet. Looking for different tools for data analysis, dashboarding, data storage and retrieval, things like Tableau. Then, like I said before, with respect to machine learning, there's some really great opportunities there for us as well. And then our IT systems really focus on asset management? I don't think so. I think we're starting to learn where some of the shortcomings are and some of our actual IT portfolio. And we're going to try to use a stronger use of these analytical tools and some of these services and things. So you don't have to be a GIS professional, as an example, just to be able to put together a map full of data. And the last thing on here is really about UAS. Everybody's into it. Everybody's doing it. All the cool kids are doing it, right? For me, the flying is not the hard part. Flying has actually really been the easy part for us. We have master contracts with people who have 1,000 hours of flight time. They have all the equipment. What we do with the data, where do we put it? What kind of software do we need? How does it change our business processes? These are the things that keep me up at night when it comes down to UAS. We know the FAA regulations are somewhat challenging, flights over people, flights over live traffic and such, and that'll continue to change as time goes on. But really, what are we doing with them, right? Is it just an interesting thing to use, or is it the right thing to use? And so we're putting together a number of different pilot projects like bridge inspections, construction data collection for quantities and things like that, design data collection, operations, emergency response. We have a slurry of different pilots that are underway right now, and we're continuing to gather our information. And the reason why that's important is that you can go out into the web and you can find examples and you can talk to other states. We're all just slightly different. And it's important to at least give that one shake to make sure that these things really do play well in your organization. So I'll leave you with this, and this is my my favorite part. These technologies that we have are always going to continue to change day to day, hour by hour. It seems like I'm getting an email or I'm getting exposed or somebody's asking about some new technology. The projects that we work on hopefully will end, right? This project has a start date and a finish date, and these pilot projects are going to have a start date and a finish date. Things are going to come and go, but developing that culture, making sure that people believe in this and that focus on continuous improvement, look at lean principles, look at innovation. That's what really matters, because that's how we're all going to sustain moving forward. Regardless of our budget size and our staff, we have to make sure that we're doing the best that we can with what we have. And that culture and that aspect of having people raise their hand and say, hey, I'm not happy with how I'm doing things right now. I want to do something different. And I'm willing to bring that idea forward. I'm willing to have that discussion with my innovation team, with my managers, and with our executives is so important. And I'm so proud of Wisconsin DOT because our culture is changing. We are constantly moving forward, and I'm so proud of everybody for getting involved. So I appreciate the time. I hope the story was relevant for you. And I guess if there's any questions or anything, I can turn it back over to the folks in the program.
All right, thank you so much, David. As you mentioned, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, or if you add it to the chat, then Tess will get those read out so we can hopefully get some answers for you.
Hi, David. This is Geneva Hooton with CDOT, and I really loved your presentation. I think it was super interesting. A couple of questions. So much of your approach and deployment is really focused on technologies and new software and new gizmos and things like that. How do you all approach change management for those? We have a lot of different things here at CDOT, and I would say that there's not always great adoption across the board.
That is an awesome question. So behind all these technologies is really the beginnings of where you sit down and do your process mapping, right? That's where you sit down and look at the actual step-by-step, the action items, the tasks that go along with that process before you select that technology. So the change management part comes from that engagement initially of how that process map is developed. Mm-hmm. And just as an example, when I looked at our design review process for where we actually ended up implementing Bluebeam, the first step was to get one region and their documentation on step-by-step, how do you do your design review today? And then I took that, I made a Visio map of that process, and then I shared it with the other regions and said, hey, identify where your differences are. What do you do that's slightly better, slightly different? And then we brought it all down to one area to have, here's the single process. And the change management part comes with both management and the practitioners. There's a lot more weight brought forward when the practitioners are telling that story. And again, that's that early adopters, early majority. Those are the people that I let have those conversations. And every once in a while, you get those laggards who dig their heels in and say no. But that's where we go back to their managers and say, hey, look, the cost benefit is here. The improvement is here. The time saving is here. There's agreement around the state that this is the best practice. We got one or two people here kind of dragging their feet. It's up to you as their manager to basically get them on board through telling them they need to get on board. And that's not a great way to go about it. You hope that things happen more organically, but that's the reality of it sometimes, right? You're always going to have those people that'll dig in. My hope is that over time, that pool of laggards becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and that those laggards and that late majority get more involved with the innovation up front, so that change management's not such a steep climb.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
We have one comment that came through the chat that just says, continuous improvement is inseparable from employee empowerment. Improvement led by management cannot be continuous. It takes time to communicate and implement a management idea. Just saying that it is intermittent, not continuous. Can you speak on that at all, David?
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. You know, that again was when I first started, and it was here comes Johnny Innovation from central office. You know, what kind of clout did I have? What kind of experience did I have in what they do? So, you know, empowering those people, and that step where we took and built those local innovation teams was huge. We had people raising their hand and jumping out of their chair because they wanted to get involved. And then we had to work with management to make sure they were supportive of that. And that's where we had some pretty good heart-to-heart discussions. We had some managers that were saying, well, we're too busy to let so-and-so participate. Well, we got to get past that. We got to figure out, how do we work share? How do we create those opportunities? How do we build that time capacity into our organization so we can get this done? If we don't prioritize it, it's never going to get done. So empowering those people is critical to improvement. And I love the idea of that it's intermittent if you don't, because if you strip that empowerment away from them, you're going to have fits and stops and starts all day long. That's a really accurate and good statement from Nigel.
Great, thank you. We have someone that also wants to know, how do you measure your innovation implementation success? And this person is also interested in learning more about your e-construction platform and tools, if you have a website or any way to share that.
Sure. So for the first part, how do we measure success? You know, I guess a lot of that comes from the pilot projects, right, where we do the documentation, a little deeper dive on the cost benefit. So financially, did it make a difference? You know, were we able to shave time off of delivery? Were we able to do some cost avoidance? That's another aspect of it. And ultimately, I think for me, a measure of success is, was it adopted or was it pushed back on? And you know, we've had some innovations that have come through that have gone statewide as best practices, but adoption was really rough because people didn't believe the value was there. So it was kind of a break-even innovation, if you will. So measuring them, and you also have to make sure that you're measuring them after the fact too, right? So after you've implemented, a year later, you got to go back and do the diligence, do a survey, check in with the staff and say, hey, is this still saving you time? Or did something else change a year later that has maybe reduced the amount of value? And it takes a lot of time, but you really just have to keep going back and asking the questions, and you need good leadership there too. And that's one of my key roles, is following up with that. More of a cultural success thing. Are people smiling? Are they happy? Are they bringing more ideas forward? I think that's another measure of success for me too, that the program is building, not shrinking. We're getting more people involved, more ideas. The ideas are getting deeper. So just from a program standpoint, that's difficult to measure, I guess, but it's something that's really visible, I guess, in a lot of terms. So, and then as far as our e-construction platform, you know, e-construction is so different state to state. It's hard to say how to explain what we've done, but we've been eating the elephant, or the herd of elephants rather, bite by bite, and implementing construction management systems and rolling those out. It all began with education and experience with the practitioners. That's why we started with mobile devices, because foundationally, if you're still writing things down in the field, you're not going to go electronic. So getting people involved at the front lines for gathering construction inspection daily reports and things like that, that's where we started. And then, you know, the platforms that we're using include Ashtaware Project. We have the pre-construction module, the construction and materials module being implemented right now. We're going to do the labor compliance module as well. We have a construction administration platform called Masterworks. It's made by Oracle. That's a lot of our construction change order processes and things, making sure those are all web-based and accessible from the field. And of course, you have the design tools and things like Civil 3D that bleed into actual construction. And then some of the tools and things like the JO7X, using Bluebeam in the field for as-built and things. The challenge that we've had, honestly, is getting people to slow down a little bit and really fully implement before they go on to the next thing. And it's just been this big combination of tools, the old how many tools in the toolbox kind of approach. Because as far as I know, there isn't just like one turnkey system for e-construction. You have to break it into chunks and use what you have. And I'm really happy with our staff because they have not been afraid to try things and test new applications. And like an example is OnStation. That's a really cool app that takes your data from your plan set and uses a GPS signal to tell you where you are relative to station offset. And so there's little improvements along the way that kind of come out of the woodwork like that too. So I know I'm not answering the question very well because we don't have a platform, but we have a lot of different approaches and pieces to that. And I'm always willing to do a little deeper dive on that with anybody that's interested.
No, that's great. Thank you. And then we have one final question that has come through the chat, and that is, how is the, and I believe it's oversized, overweight team using the GoPros in their work?
Okay, yeah. We, there's some routing in oversized overweight where maybe a stop sign is removable so that the truck can go around the corner, or maybe it's a speed limit sign or something like that. So what we do is we drive those oversized overweight routes to make sure that there's really no visible instructions, or that, maybe there's a construction project, a local project or something that is underway, or barrels or something in the way. So we just use those as drive-throughs to document that, hey, there is a sign there, and the responsibility of that that escort team is to take that down and put it back up. And so we have proof that it was there originally, and they basically put it on the dash or on the hood of the truck and just use it for driving. Then before they were they were probably, and I'm not going to accuse them of this, but they were probably holding their iPhone out the window to do this previously. And so obviously that's not a best practice.
All right, thank you so much, David. That was a great presentation. We definitely have a lot of good questions and conversations arising, and there's still some coming up in the chat. We'll give everyone a little bit more time to generate some thoughts and questions, and we will address all of them in the open forum a little later on. But for now, we will move on to our next presentation. Here in the Office of Process Improvement, we have a lot of interns. It ranges upward from 8 interns to right now we're working with a smaller staff of 4 interns. And we're usually the ones helping facilitate these webinars, but this is not all we do. So we're going to share a little more about all the different hats we wear over here at CDOT. Okay, I just want to share a few of the larger projects that I work on here at CDOT. One of them is helping manage CDOT's Everyday Counts innovations, and David kind of spoke about Everyday Counts earlier and UAS, and that's great. If you don't know what Everyday Counts is, it's a state-based model that's sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, and this program is just meant to identify and rapidly deploy proven but underutilized innovations. So FHWA identifies innovations that they know are going to work, but we just don't see them utilized a lot. And so each state can choose to opt into the innovations. This year there were 10 to choose from, and CDOT opted into 9. On the right-hand side is just a screenshot of our website showing the 9 innovations we've opted into, our champions for them, and the sponsors, as well as the timeline for these innovations as well. And then on the left-hand side, those are the 5 that I help manage. So collaborative hydraulics, project bundling, reducing rural roadway departures, safe transportation for every pedestrian, and virtual public involvement. And when I say that I help manage these, it's a lot of making sure that the sponsors are able to meet with the champions and vice versa, making sure that progress reports are submitted to FHWA on time and things like that. But it's been a really, really interesting project for me to work on because I've gained a lot of insight
on these amazing innovations that people at CDOT and across the entire country are working on. A couple of other things I help out with is lean construction, and this really involves just educating CDOT employees about lean construction practices and techniques, getting CDOT employees in lean construction classes, like classes on the last planner system and things like that, creating FAQs. Right now, we're really in a stage that we're just trying to build some awareness and desire around lean construction here at CDOT. I'm also helping work on some grants right now, which is a really cool experience to be involved in that process from start to finish. So I'm helping with the writing as well as the benefit cost analysis for those. And then finally, I help out with our Lean Everyday Ideas program, and that's the screenshot that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. Lean Everyday Ideas is essentially a program where any CDOT employee across the state can submit either an innovation that they created to fix a problem that they were having, or if they see something that needs to be fixed but they're not quite sure how to go about doing that themselves, then they can submit an I suggest, and we help them get in touch with a subject matter expert on that, so they can get the ball rolling on that process. So that's been really cool as well, because it's just days filled almost completely with innovation.
All right, and next up we have Campbell.
Hi guys, I'm Campbell. I'm a media and marketing intern here at CDOT's Office of Process Improvement. My background is largely in graphic design and marketing, so I thought I would just share a couple of the projects that I have been working on recently. On the top left, I recently redesigned our thank you card that comes from our office. That was a lot of fun. It was really an opportunity for me to take some creative liberty, so I created this little illustration basically showcasing different methods of transportation, pedestrians, we've got cyclists, just kind of personalizing it and making it unique. And I have also recently been working on a redesign for the idea cards. Our innovation program, Lean Everyday Ideas, each innovation is made into an idea card, which basically just gives a summary of the innovation, the benefits. It makes it easy for people to borrow it. So we've been experimenting with some redesigns on that, and that's just one of the options that we've come up with so far. I also have been working on some bike parking wayfinding signs. We have Bike to Work Day coming up in a couple weeks, and we wanted to direct people to the bike parking that's in the parking garage. It's not very visible at the moment, so I got to make some signs just helping direct people to those, and that was a fun little project as well. On the far right, this Everyday Counts 4 poster. So as Tess mentioned, we work with Everyday Counts, and this was just a summary poster of last round's innovations and just kind of where they started out and where they ended up, and just a little bit of a summary of how those turned out. So that was a really fun way to visually represent that. I think that it makes it a little bit more interesting than perhaps reading an article. So that was another really fun project. I also do various marketing tasks around the office. I'm working on a video project right now for Lean Everyday Ideas that's using the STIC grant. So we are going to be showcasing various innovations from throughout the regions, making them into little videos that will hopefully help spread innovation, help raise awareness of all of these great innovations that are coming out of CDOT, and really just show off these incredible innovators and some of the great things that our employees have made. I also am responsible for sending our office's content to larger newsletters like All Employee News. We just give a little blurb most of the time about various innovations that we want to spotlight, and we'll often share a lean tool as well. And I also manage our peer exchange newsletter. So this is a newsletter based off of an event that happened in December. Basically, it was a peer exchange between change management professionals. And this newsletter just continues the conversation. We have an expert panel that we get to answer questions every time. We'll share a little bit of change management news and articles from our website that are related to change management. So that's been, it goes out monthly. If anyone is interested in receiving this newsletter, I can definitely get you on that distribution list, but it's just a good way for our office to continue to share that change management knowledge and keep the conversation going.
All right, thank you so much, Campbell. Kind of piggybacking off of the change management, I'm Mary, and most of my workload comes from working through our change management program. We have a lot of courses that we offer for change management. We have a licensing with a local company, ProSci, where we offer 3 different kinds of courses. There's a general employee course that's a half-day course. There's a managers and supervisors course that's 1 day, and then there's a longer, really in-depth 3-day course for change management practitioners and project managers, just so you can take your project and do a deep dive on change management and kind of learn all you can to have successful change management implemented into your program. So I help with a lot of the scheduling with that, finding the classrooms, the facilitators, making sure everything is set up and coordinated, and then also increasing the enrollment on those so we have a good amount of people in the class so it's as beneficial for everyone as possible. We also do a fair amount of presentations. Right now I'm working on 2 external presentations, one with the Society of Government Meeting Professionals and then one with the American Association of Motor Vehicles. So I'm developing the decks for that, and then there's one in July and one in August. I'm going to go out and present with our change management program manager, Michelle. We are going to do those. And then also we have another webinar that we facilitate here through CDOT, the Public Sector Change Practitioners. It's all things change management. We have people share about their change management programs. We'll have presentations on kind of the ideas behind change management and how those can impact the culture, impact your success, and all of that. If you have any interest in that, we can get that information out to you as well. Those webinars occur on the months we do not have the TLF webinars. And then what we are also working on is project management. We're kind of integrating more change management while developing our project management program here internal to CDOT. That GIF at the bottom, it's kind of scrolling through these templates that I started building just so we have a standard process behind all of the internal improvement projects. It starts with your work breakdown structure, a project plan, developing through a schedule, a budget. If you need to have a project change, we have the form you submit for that. And then we also have the project closure, so we have a formal ending to it. And then this is contributing to the just-in-time training. It's a new curriculum we are developing to help both the accidental project managers and the experienced project managers use these templates and then integrate project management from the integrate change management from the get-go, just so you have a thoroughly thought-out project that is going to be as successful as possible. And you can kind of see there's 3 stages to the curriculum we're developing. It starts with your pre-planning. We sit you down, we help you work through the entire charter so you know who your team is, what needs to be done, what metrics you're using. And then it goes into planning that schedule, the budget, the breakdown structure, and lastly, the execution, the management, and the reinforcement, just so you are following that project all the way through. And if you have any pressing questions for either Campbell, Tess, or myself about anything we are working on, or even a question for Gary or Geneva on what it's like working with a team that's predominantly interns, or if you have any questions about starting an internship, go ahead and ask those, send them in the chat pane. We will also have the open forum where you are welcome to bring those up. I saw one question about getting copies of the forms. We are going to be uploading those onto our website very soon, where they will be accessible both in a Google Docs version if you use that platform, and we will also have Microsoft Word and Excel versions. So those will be up soon, and we can definitely get that link distributed as soon as the forms have been published.
It looks like we have another question just asking how long do the interns stay on, and is it difficult to maintain consistency with the turnover? So Geneva and Gary, if you guys want to.
Sure.
So appreciate that that question. First of all, from my standpoint, thank you to our interns, always doing terrific work. It helps us deliver our program, and our internships are about the intern. Our interns are classified as temporary CDOT employees. As that in the state of Colorado, temporary employees have limitation. They can work a certain number of hours up through a year, actually physically on site, and then have to actually roll out of their internships. So we do have folks that come in, roll off, go into other parts of their career. Consistency, I like to think I contribute some to that, but I'm not sure that's true. I think the consistency comes from the program leads that I have, Geneva and Michelle, and from interns helping each other. All of our interns, whenever there's a new intern coming on board, our interns wrestle with each other about who's actually going to be the intern buddy for that intern, somebody that's going to help them navigate a new organization. I think all of us that have come on to new organizations know that's a difficult task, as well as to navigate what it's like to work as part of an integrated team. So that consistency, it is mostly due to our intern crew. Hope that's helpful. We will also push out to you our intern program page, which has a lot more details about that.
I'll also jump in. This is Geneva Houghton. I would say, just as any good process improvement team, we do try to push standards and documentation, and we do lots of after action reviews, and so lots of what we do is actually just purely documented, and so that helps a lot with consistency.
Oh, and I'll just jump in here. This is actually something I was probably going to ask David later on. I saw one of his pages said Trello training, and I'll probably ask that question later, David. We're big believers in Kanban. Trello is an electronic version of Kanban. It helps everybody keep on track of work, since we all occasionally be in different places, may work different schedules. So having some of that consistency, as Geneva is noting, through templates, through standard work, and also through the use of some of the nifty tools that are out there. We use the free version of Trello, which is more than enough for our purposes.
All right, if anyone has any other questions that arise, we will still have that open forum. You can bring them up then. Now we are going to move on. It is the 7th year that we have had the Transportation Lean Forum. So we're going to let Gary speak to that a little bit. It's really exciting to have been around for 7 years and continue to build and keep going strong.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. And we'll take just a few minutes. We do want to get to the open forum, always a very interesting session where we get tossed things back and forth about presentations, about as well as anything else on your mind. I love this visual that Mary put together. So celebration, first of all, important to say thank you. Thank you to everyone over the 7 years that has helped share information. These are the logos of all the organizations that have actually shared during those 7 years. Isn't this fabulous? It's a wonderful thing in our transportation community to be able to help each other. It's always something that's impressed me about the public sector. I'm an old private sector guy. I've been in the public sector here in state service for 8 years. 7 of those years we've had the chance to have the Transportation Lean Forum. So first of all, thank you to everybody. How did it start? Oh gosh, when I came on board, I knew a little bit about process improvement, nothing about state service. So I certainly did some discussions inside the organization, but also had the great opportunity to reach out to various folks during my first few months here, usually one-on-one conversations on the phone. And interestingly enough, we got together on 3 states on the phone together, and it was all by phone initially. On Wednesday, June 13th, 2012, these are the folks that were on the phone. Several of these folks have since retired and are doing wonderful things in retirement. I want to say thank you to Tennessee, thank you to Maine, and thank you to the other folks here in Colorado that helped kick this off. At the very end of this session on June 13th, we asked the question, should we continue? And in fact, this is a question we ask at virtually every session. Should we continue? And everybody said yes. And somebody, I think it might have been Tennessee, said, let's all invite somebody else the next time around. So the second session, we invited our friends from Arizona and Minnesota. Arizona at the time. I believe it was Kismet, as well as Heather, who may be on the phone today. Rob Woods, who ran at the time and still runs the statewide office, which for what is now called the Arizona Management System. Thank you to our friends in the Grand Canyon State. In Minnesota, it was at the time it was Tom Bauman who ran the statewide program, and Dave Bahosky, who's still in the DOT there. Thank you to everybody in Minnesota. That session included the folks that are on the prior page, as well as our friends from Arizona and Minnesota. We invited more folks. We invited Ohio. Devine, thank you for participating there in October. We invited Washington State. The person that ran the program at the time isn't with Washington State anymore. That's now run by Sam Wilson. Thank you to our friends in the Buckeye State and in the Evergreen State. We had another session, fourth session. New Hampshire jumped on board. Fran Brzezinski, thank you, Fran. In Nebraska, Cindy, who's no longer with Nebraska, jumped on board. Iowa, Dave Putz, I remember you in that first session. Thank you. From Wisconsin at the time, it was Lori Richter, and of course now running the program statewide is David Essie. Thank you to friends in all those states. In our fifth session, we added on Connecticut and California and Illinois. Thank you to everybody in those states. Around this time, we're actually starting to add in interns also, who actually were listening first and then helping put together the program and actually help evolving the program. At the end of, in September, our friends from the Highways Agency in England, which is now called Highways England, made a wonderful presentation on the things going on with lean construction. You actually heard Tess talk to some about lean construction. We've been borrowing things from there as well as other places. Our very first past the United States participation, thank you to our friends in Highways England. And then in December, we had yet another session. I want to note line 5, online repository. This was actually out of work among a number of different interns behind the scenes saying, you know what, there's so much information, shouldn't we put something online? And I said, I have no idea how to do that. Go figure it out. And gosh, did they. So that's where the website was launched, which is called the Lean Interchange. They came up with that term, by the way. You know, thinking about highways, what a thing to think about, interchange. And it's a wonderful way to exchange information between sessions in our webinars. So thank you to all the interns from that time that helped us develop that. Our TLF members today, everything in green, including our friends across the way. We have not yet colored in Sweden. We know we get folks from Sweden also. Thank you to everybody participating. A community of practice like the Transportation Lean Forum only works if everybody that's part of that participates, and it's just wonderful that, to see that happening. And the future. We are trying to evolve this over a period of time. We're working to integrate this with AASHTO. Now we know that not everybody online is members of AASHTO, so we've got an assurance from AASHTO that affiliate members will have access to webinars in the future as this evolves into AASHTO, as well as the Lean Interchange. We are moving that Lean Interchange website to the Transportation Performance, or TPM website, which is sponsored by AASHTO as well as FHWA. Secondly, interestingly enough, over a period of time, other people find out about the Transportation Lean Forum. We're going to continue to support them. For instance, I talked recently at the No Boundaries Pooled Fund Project about things they're trying to do. They're trying to develop a community of practice for roadway maintenance professionals, including having a website to share ideas. And they saw the website that we've got for Transportation Lean Forum and said, yep, we want one of those. So we're actually working to help them with the technology on that. And then the next few weeks, we're going to push out a survey to DOTs, Ministries of Transportation in Canada and elsewhere to see how much interest there is to host and produce webinars someplace beyond CDOT. We love what our interns are doing to produce. They are glad to teach other folks how to do that and to spread that across other states and other and other provinces and elsewhere would be wonderful. And that survey will also say, what future direction should we take this community of practice? So thank you to everybody that's helped make this a success over the next 7 years, and we look forward to making it even better in the future.
All right, thank you so much, Gary. And again, thank you to everyone who helps continue the Transportation Lean Forum, continues to help us grow. We will now move into the open forum. You can go ahead and ask David any other questions you had on your mind about their program, about any of the technology he's implemented, any of their ideas. If you have any follow-up questions for the internship program here at CDOT, feel free to ask, and we will read those chat questions out as well.
And by the way, if you have questions about other topics that weren't covered, but things on your mind that you want to throw out to the other 50 or so nodes of folks that are out there, please feel free to do that.
I'll kick it off with a couple more questions from the chat for David. One is, for your program to be considered a success, do you have a minimum percentage for the adopted innovation ideas?
No. Fortunately, I guess. I mean, having that extra pressure, having some sort of threshold has never been part of the conversation for me. Our first year in 2014, we had about 10 or 12 ideas submitted. Of that, we probably had 2 of them become real. The following years, as we implemented the local teams and things, we have somewhere around 40 to 50 each year that are submitted, you know, and if we get 10% of those to really become something real, viable, impactful, I'm always really happy about that. So fortunately, my management is not so much focused on the metrics. They're focused on the culture and the quality of what we're doing. I know there are some organizations who have said, you know, they have a target goal of implementing 10 things per year, things like that, and that's fine. We just haven't had to go that direct. Our program, as you can probably tell, is pretty informal in a lot of ways, but we're making good progress. And that's one thing that maybe I didn't mention in my presentation, is that what's really important throughout these kind of conversations, and again, I really appreciate the opportunity to tell our story, is that you make it your own, right? I mean, what Colorado's done, what Arizona's done, what Iowa's done is different. And there's some similarities there, but at the end of the day, what's most relevant and what I can get done in my organization is maybe different than what others can. So yeah, fortunately, no real pass-fail criteria there.
Great, thanks, David. We have another question. Were internal resources used for these implementations, or were external contractors and consultants hired? Or did you get any other sort of additional staff to support this?
We are very much so homegrown. I would say 95% of the things that we've implemented have come through and been led by internal champions with internal funding. I do not have a multi-million-dollar innovation budget. We do things very, very slim and easy. With that said, we do quite a bit of outreach. So when we're going to implement like construction technologies, we bring our engineering consultants to the table. We bring our contractors to the table through our stick primarily. That's our external sort of partnership groups. In some cases, we had a mega project where a consultant was using a specific technology, and the team said, hey, we'd like to try that too. And that was kind of a blend where an idea came from the consulting industry towards us, and we adopted it. So, but no, like I said, almost everything we do is really homegrown and internally resourced.
Thank you. And if anyone else has any questions that they want to either submit to the chat or ask in person, please do that now. Otherwise, all questions from the chat have been addressed.
Hey, David, this is Geneva. I have a question for you, and really for anyone else online who is working with the Everyday Counts program through federal highways. That's something that CDOT has opted into now for, I think, all 10 years. And it's changed really over the last 6 months of how we're approaching it. And I would love to hear from you. What is your approach for the innovations that your state DOT has opted into? And how do you make sure that your champions for each of those innovations are as successful as possible?
The first part of that would be, is it a fit that's in alignment with the current strategic goals? If things are a departure from that, it makes it harder to resource. So, but when things kind of fall neatly and nicely, it's easier to say, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to leverage this. And in some cases, it's provided us with an opportunity. Like the most current round, EDC 5 has UAS on there. We've done some stuff with UAS, and there was always some questions as to, what is the national best practice? And it seems like every other week I get a survey from various groups of, are you using drones or not? But now that it got formalized within EDC, I'm getting less pushback because it's a nationally recognized direction. So, I guess that's kind of the other piece of it, is that leveraging, if you have something of interest, and saying, hey, hold on a second, everybody else is doing it. Plus with that comes the resources. The third component maybe to this is making sure that you have clear champions. Like I said, I can't own all this stuff. And if I have a really good EDC topic that's available, but I don't have anybody to really shepherd it and lead it, we really won't go after it. And so it becomes a resourcing challenge as well. In those cases, if I don't have strong championship, what we do is we generally join it at the lowest level. And I think that's, I can't remember what they call it, their first phase of EDC, just so we're paying attention to it and we're participating in the webinars, we're learning, but we're not really taking action on anything yet because we don't have the resources to do it. So it's combinations of things.
That's great. Thank you.
I would add too, the same goes for the grants, like stick grants, aid grants, and things. It's always important as state agencies that we go after the money, right? But you really got to be careful of bringing in and going down a path of getting a grant, not having clear project leadership, implementation leadership there. So that's where I'm very selective with the stick grants as to what I will apply it to. And we just ran into a situation where somebody left the department and he was leading one of our stick grant projects. And so now we have to do a shuffling and try to figure out who else can fill those shoes. And I realized then and there how important it is to have that champion in play. It's critical.
Yeah, thank you. Same for us here at CDOT. We've had within our own office successfully gone after 2 stick grants, and they were applied for by interns, which is amazing. But then our interns leave, and it's like, oh no, now we have to really manage this money. And then one thing that's been successful for our DOT is with the stick grant this year, we actually changed the requirements, and we incentivized the stick grant applications to also be in alignment with our EDC projects, so that we have some cross alignment within the organization.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. We've done a little bit of that. Our most recent one for last fiscal year is targeted at, that's where I'm using the funding to do our drone pilot projects. Previous years though, we've done some departures from that. We did a non-destructive testing technique for beam guard post depth, and we did one for a quantities to plans estimating tool. They all kind of fall in line, I guess, at some aspect of EDC, but they're not formal EDC topic areas. We've done a combination of both.
Very cool. Thank you.
All right, if anyone has any lingering questions or comments, now is the time to throw them out there.
Hey David, this is Gary. I saw real quickly on one of your slides it said Trello. What are you guys doing with Trello there in the Badger State?
It was an aspect of our Northeast region innovation team was having a hard time sort of communicating differently, and use of SharePoint. I don't know what SharePoint usage is like at other agencies across the nation, but for us, our environment in SharePoint's really locked down. It's not very functional. It's very clunky, lots of clicking. And people were trying to use that as a matter of communication between teams, right? And it's not project information, it's people information, if you will. And the old standby of email doesn't work real great either for you. We have Skype now in our organization, so people are using instant messaging. But again, that's not exactly what they were trying to achieve. So this is where a specific unit within the the organization has maybe 4 or 5 people. The manager is able to kind of keep an ongoing conversation rolling, saying, hey, are you working on this? I'm working on that. It's just a coordination, communication tool primarily right now. I just found out the other day that we're going to be bringing in Microsoft Teams, which is, I'm not well versed in what it is exactly, but I have a feeling it's going to be similar to the Trello vein, about people communication based more than project information based. So that's primarily it. And that group has expanded it out within their region. And now we're going to be taking this sort of to the broader audience statewide and doing some show and tells. And I don't know if we're going to get to a point where we sort of say, oh, you should be using Trello for this, but we want to make sure that people have an opportunity to adopt it where and when they feel it's beneficial.
Great, thank you, David.
Hi, Gary. This is Troy Tusa from Caltrans.
Hi, Troy.
How are you? Hey, I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank the other DOTs. We are doing a research project from CTC Research Group. We're out looking for best practices, and now that the programs have been going on for like 7 years or better, we're having trouble with our leadership changes. There's a lot of movement going on, and how to keep that momentum going is our theme. How do we keep this going? So I do want to thank you guys for participating in that. I will share the research report after it's done in July or August. Actually, it'll be August. But I just want to take this time to thank you guys.
Troy, that's great. Again, we appreciate the willingness for you all at Caltrans to engage other states and our interns who are going to be hosting future sessions of TLF are making notes to say, oh, we need to have Troy talk about this during one of those sessions.
Absolutely. No, I already agreed to that. Definitely.
Great. Thank you.
No, this is David. I just one quick comment about Troy's statement there is what Gary and your group and the TLF does is so important for so many reasons. But what Troy just mentioned is really, really important. We just had a major change here within Wisconsin, new governor, new department secretary, lots of changes within the organization. And you really find out how durable your innovation programs are when those changes happen. And being prepared to drop that elevator pitch on those new executives and have it make sense, have it be relative, have it be impactful is super important. But then also having the data and the other information to back it up. And some of that comes from, examples of what other DOTs are doing. It just strengthens everybody's position in this thing. So I appreciate Troy's comment, and I would echo, thank you to Gary and the team and the whole TLF group.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
And you're very welcome. I will tell you, at early days here in Colorado, these sessions were so important because I could then say, hey, guess what Arizona is doing? We're pretty competitive here at CDOT. Guess what Arizona is doing? Guess what Minnesota is doing? Guess what Washington State's doing? And folks would perk up on that. There's good innovation and improvement at other DOTs. That made a big difference. So right back at you guys. All the folks that have contributed. Again, I love the graphic that Mary put together, recognizing the 7-year anniversary. All of those groups supporting each other. I know we've been using that, and hopefully it's been helpful to many of you out there also. And if there are things here in the open forum you want to bring up beyond even just what the wonderful stuff David's done and the interns, bring up those questions. We have plenty of time here.
This is David. I have a question for the group, I guess. I really try to drive things through our organization being business first. Right? What's the business initiative? What's the business purpose? What's the business process? And then everything else we do to improve those sort of falls into place into different categories of people, resources, technologies, and things. Within your organizations, do you have formal processes to develop strategic plans, business plans? And if you do, is that generally led from a specific group, or is that pushed down from executives, or how does it all sort of come together?
And for those of you that might have trouble with your microphone, if you put it into the chat pane, an answer there, Tess will read it out for everybody. Hey, David, here at CDOT, it's a little bit of top-down kind of stuff. We are exploring, trying to use Hoshin planning, Hoshin Connery, the strategy deployment. But I have to admit, we're just at the beginning stages of that. Some of our at CDOT, we have 3 large new goals coming in. Just like many of you, we have a new governor, new executive director, and lots of wonderful opportunities. We're working to get better safety. We call it whole system, whole safety. That's one of our big initiatives. Another one of our big initiatives is on electrification. How do we get additional use of electric vehicles and other things onto our roadways? Not just that that's a good thing in and of itself, because it is, but also that helps us set up for the future of connected autonomous vehicles, because we know from research that connected autonomous vehicles work best if they're electric vehicles. And then we have this very large initiative underway on reducing vehicle miles traveled, which will also then reduce greenhouse gases generated from the transportation system. So our strategic planning is a little bit led from a top-down initiative in terms of things from the governor's office and the executive director. I was part of that planning inside CDOT. We're also working the bottom-up strategy too, to say what are the, much like you are at Wisconsin and other DOTs are, I hate to say bottom-up, frontline led. People at the front line often are seen at the bottom of the pyramid, and I think that's a bad thing. So frontline-led initiatives that can actually blossom into bigger things. But we're definitely imperfect on that. I'd sure love to hear other, just like you, from other folks on the line, how they might be approaching that whole topic.
So Heather from Arizona is saying that in Arizona, our executives plan at a high level and it cascades down. And she says this is their 2nd year. Doing it that way to operations through the Hoshin Connery plan, X Matrix. And then someone else commented that they tried Hoshin Connery, but it wasn't well executed, but they keep working on it. So Heather said that from the X Matrix, they created A3s at each division level, and then at each leader, 1 or 2 steps down from the division director.
And Gary, this is Troy again at Caltrans. We actually have a strategic management office in the director's office. They use a lot of consultants to survey the frontline level and do a lot of forum-like type town hall meetings to get that, what our mission and vision goals are. So and then basically it comes from the top down after that.
Thanks, Troy. Appreciate that. How about other folks? Lots of different things out there. Other folks, thoughts about this?
We have Pennsylvania DOT that jumped in saying that their Bureau of Innovations facilitates the development of the department's strategic plan with involvement from their executive committee. And that while their strategic plan is a top-down approach, Pennsylvania DOT's leadership also identifies annual challenges and empowers employee-led visioning teams to then conduct research and propose actionable solutions. Nebraska DOT is saying that they use several strategic approaches, both top-down and bottom-up. They are working closely with the frontline teams to bring ideas up during different LSS events and daily huddles.
And LSS is the Lean Six Sigma there in Nebraska.
Those are some really great comments. We're with the change in leadership, they just did a really nice employee survey here And I'm trying to make some make some suggestions to my executives as to, hey, there's some different ways to go about how we've done things in the past to really execute. And there's the people strategic stuff, and then there's the business strategic stuff, and you want crosswalks between the two, because ideally for me, I want to see our business plan have 2 or 3 really good strategic goals, and then be able to filter that down to the people level and say, from a people strategy, how do I make it relevant for that frontline staff member? Because often when we talk about business planning or strategic goals, the frontline staff just sort of roll their eyes and say, yeah, well, I got to do my job, and they don't really feel or see how what they do supports the long range or the success of our organization. So I think there's going to be some need for supervisor and management training so that they can start helping them tie things together and say, hey, yeah, you sit in that chair, but do you realize that what you do is supporting X, Y, and Z for our organization?
No, great thoughts, David. All right, it is open forum. All topics can be on the table. Are there other topics that folks want to bring up? By the way, you see up there, share your successes. We encourage people to brag. Your success might actually be somebody's current challenge. We find that all the time. So if you've got something you want to brag on to say, this is something we did and it worked really well, brag away.
All right, with that, if anyone has any questions that arise afterwards, you can feel free to contact David. His information is up there. Or if you have any questions here for Gary or us interns at CDOT, we will send out that feedback form after the webinar. You can just throw up any questions, thoughts, concerns on there, and we will definitely take those into account.
All right, and we're going to move on to future session in just a minute, but for the current session, a big thank you to David for a presentation about what's happening at Wisconsin DOT on innovation. Wonderful stuff. We also had a second presenter scheduled for main presenter scheduled for today, who for personal reasons had to jump out. We certainly understand that. I want to let you know our intern team jumped in with 48 hours of notice, put together the presentation that you saw. I had the very best intern team in the country, so I want to thank everybody here in the room that jumped in and did that. Wonderful stuff. And thank you to everybody else online. 7 years. Let's start the 8th year off with a bang. And we're going to talk about what that 8th year looks like, at least for the next session.
Yeah, again, a huge thanks to everyone, to my fellow interns for putting together a presentation, and to David. We really can't host this without all of you guys giving your presentations, giving your feedback and your questions. So if you are interested in being one of our future presenters, please reach out to Campbell. She will be hosting the next webinar in August. You can find her email there, or we will have that feedback form where you can put it on. But we really do appreciate all of you guys contribute. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you in August. Have a great rest of your week.